Hang on. Hey everyone, it's our Shawn. We are live. We are going to be having a discussion today. This is part of our Journey to CEO show, where we help people get from being an entrepreneur, maybe being an employee, to stepping into a business, all the way to taking the role of CEO if that's what the path they desire. So that's our goal, is to give you the tools, tips, tricks, things that are necessary to go on that journey, or determine whether that's even the journey you want to take. For many entrepreneurs, there are steps in the journey from entrepreneur to CEO, and some people choose that they are specialists at certain steps of the processes, and there's ways to do that. But if you decide to go all the way from entrepreneur to CEO, Dr. Ann, who's going to join me here, and I have been putting together a book called Entrepreneur to CEO. And we do this video series called Journey to CEO, which is a YouTube channel where we help people with this journey. And today we're going to be talking about office politics, what it is, what it means, how you manage it, and how you can, be more successful at it in business. So regardless of what role you're in, if you're the business owner, if you're leading a team, if you're just there trying to advance your career, there's no doubt you're going to get caught with situations where our politics are going to come up in the office. And we want to talk about how to use that as part of your business process to grow, to continue your growth, even when office politics things are happening. Hey, Dr. Ann, good to see you.
How are you doing, Shawn?
We're doing great. We are rolling today. So I was telling you, I had a client that's kind of getting a project finished up. So I've been calls, and then jump in here for a bit, and we'll go back to that in a little while. No politics there with that client right now, so that's good. But I can't say everybody's always that fortunate, right? Sometimes we get caught up in situations where political situations come into our business, sometimes more directly, sometimes more indirectly. But it can really change how we manage things, right?
Well, I think the first thing we have to make certain in any business is that everyone understands the culture and the values that are held by that culture, so that everybody's moving in the same direction. And obviously, context is going to be seen differently by your different staff members. And therefore, it's important as a leader that you really be able to assess the situation and understand how things might occur to other people. It's not that we react to facts, it's that we react to how those facts occur to us. So in any situation, we have different points of view, and people try and take advantage. We want to make sure that we're transparent and we're not allowing people to have their own agenda, in a sense, in the workplace. So the first thing to do is make certain that everybody understands the values, whether it's the value of team play, whether it's the value of allowing people to grow professionally, and honesty, transparency. What is it that makes your culture work well in the workplace? And if you have a strong culture, you want to protect that culture. And there are environmental issues that come into play. There are things that are going to happen in the outside politics. If they're brought into the workplace, then you want to make sure that you are being very careful on being neutral in how things are being managed.
Yeah, you hit a couple of points that I'd like to double down on, which I think are important as a leader in an organization. And that's whether you're a formal leader, you're named on the paper and you're up higher on the chart, or whether you're just an important team member who's helping to carry out the mission, right? We can all be leaders.
Correct.
But, as leaders, we need to understand the culture and branding. And you kind of touched on some of those elements: culture, branding, values. These are critical, right? So politics is part of that, right? Do you have a culture? What is your culture on politics, right? And culture is one of those things where if you don't talk about culture and if you don't determine what you want to do with culture, you're going to go on an accidental ride, right? You're going to have a culture. The question is the culture you want, or is it some random culture that one of your employees influenced and sent you that direction?
Right. And I think that if the leader has core values that are absolutely essential, then when you're hiring, you're going to hire to those values and make certain that everybody knows those values. The other thing is, too, not only do you have to have a strong culture that is able to work well together, you also have to be able to define, this is where we're going.
Yes.
And therefore, because of that, this is the purpose that we have. This is how we're going to help our community. This is how we're going to help our employees. This is how we're going to help our clients. If everybody is on that same trajectory, then it's a more stable environment, I think. And, because like I said, there are situations that can occur. There are things that happen in the world that can suddenly impact your culture. And you want to make certain that you are able to manage that without, as you say, it taking over and taking you in a completely different trajectory.
Right. And that's why it's important to understand the culture and values. And we can see from some of the movements we've had recently that sometimes these political things, companies, for a long time, companies had kind of a policy of, or a lot of companies had a policy of, let's just ignore politics, right? Let's come to work, we'll get our products out the door, and we don't have to think about it. But now, sometimes it's become so pervasive that if you don't take a position, that employees, customers, media, other people say, well, what is your position, right? I mean, they will actually affirmatively bring it to you. So the idea of just completely sidestepping politics doesn't necessarily work for most organizations.
Not with COVID. I mean, there are ways that we have to take stands now, but I think that we have to understand too that people have different points of view, and that's okay. That's expected. I mean, they're human. So as long as there is respect, as long as we don't treat people, what my mother used to say, don't be ugly, as long as we're not hurtful for one another, and we remind people that the purpose of this organization is to accomplish certain things, then we can move forward and be able to work together. It's okay to disagree. You can agree to disagree, but really, respect is critical at this particular juncture. And also, I think that if we make certain that we allow people to grow into their job, they can still have professional development is on the table, that we are there to assist them as well in their development. I think that the rocky divisiveness is not going to take over the organization.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. And, some organizations too, I mean, politics is just part and parcel of who you are. I'm thinking of a media or a published company, right? I mean, if you're in a media business, the First Amendment is critical to your business, right? I mean, you are going to be political about the First Amendment, just like a gun manufacturer would be on the Second Amendment, right? So sometimes these political things are fundamental to shaping the regulatory and market environment for your business. And so, we would expect some companies to be political because it's the nature of their business. They have to get involved.
Well, and it just, you have to make it very clear to your employees whether or not you're an advocate. Or if you are an agency that advocates certain points of view, first of all, the people working for you are probably going to be in that same arena with you with the same perspective. But if you're not an advocate, if you make it a point that you are not going to be advocating certain points of view, then you need to make certain that that the voices in your organization are not posting on social media and advocating certain things that you have said is not appropriate. So you have to just be careful on that.
Yeah, and a lot of it too, you talked about really is setting expectations, right? I mean, we talked about branding, values, culture to be as we started this topic. And I think there's a very important communication strategy, right? Like, this is the values of the company. This is our culture, right? We openly have First Amendment discussions at work. We can talk about different issues, or we don't have First Amendment discussions at work, right? Or we support certain political causes because they're in alignment with our business, or we don't support certain political causes because they're not in alignment with our business. I think the more you can have the tough decisions early in your business and early in the process, and as you're going, you can avoid a lot of these issues down the line because people know who you are. They know what they signed up for.
Well, and if you're in the energy business, you're going to have particular points of view. If you are here in Pennsylvania, if you're involved in fracking, you're going to have specific points of view because you want to protect your industry. But I also think that you need to be able to understand that there are people that don't agree with that and be able to defend why you're doing what you're doing without having to be divisive and having to start, verbal fights with one another. And I think that that's one of the things that becomes very important in any organization, is understanding the proper ways to communicate and the proper ways. Set your rules, get your employee manual in good shape that says this is how we can operate on social media. This is how we can operate when we're talking to the press. This is the way that we are going to handle situations as they come up. And as a leader, it's really important that you begin to think through how you might handle things if that situation arises. I think that that's one of the things is that you can't necessarily predict, here's what the future is going to be, but you can think about scenarios, and that becomes important as well.
Yeah, we got some viewer feedback here. This is great. So folks, again, feel free to join in. Tanya Enninger here.
Tanya's joining us.
She sent the comment in. She's a former guest here on the Journey to CEO show. If you want to catch that, go check out our Journey to CEO YouTube channel, subscribe, scroll through the past videos. You'll find where we had a great discussion with Tanya about changes due to COVID, business models changing. And she's asking, what about office politics with more people working from home and not interacting as much with each other? I mean, it'll be interesting to get your views on this, Dr. Ann, but I mean, I don't know if working from home is avoiding some of these office politics issues from what I'm seeing and hearing. Yeah. And the guys I'm working with, it's still alive and well, even with working from home. What do you think?
Well, the thing is too, if you're working from home and you have your little family and you're talking through and you have this political view, and then you get with some other people with other points of view that you haven't talked to in a while, and you come into the office, there can be some intense moments because you may think everybody is in agreement with you because you've been talking about it, or you've been looking at this one station that has a particular political point of view. And then you go in and find out, oh my gosh, they have completely opposite points of view from me. And they're as determined and as intense as I am. And you just have to be very careful about that, the intensity when you get into the arena might actually be a deeper clash. So I would think about that and just realize, and as a leader, be communicating, okay, people, we're coming in, we've got 2 months until an election. Things are heating up. So please beware and be respectful of other people's points of view. And you might even just put it out there as a leader and just say, hey, this is the way it is. And with this intensity, we realize that, but why are we here? Let's stay focused on our purpose.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that, to say, hey, this is just where we are. This is who we are. But yeah, I mean, people are still going to bring these issues up, and they still find ways to get in there, there's a lot of wedge issues going on right now, and even people from working from home, there's been a lot of stuff around, and I'll try to skirt the issue so we don't have a huge debate about it here. But I mean, fire issues, right? I mean, what are you wearing? Are you wearing a mask? Are you wearing a shirt with a slogan on it? You get on a video call and there's somebody taking a political position through their action or inaction, right? So this has become so pervasive that even working from home, these issues are still going to come up.
I think that you still have to have it in your employee manual, what behavior is allowed and not allowed. And even when you are on a Zoom call, or you're on some, Skyping, or you're on a video chat, that you make certain that you are still maintaining the office decorum as if you were in the office. Just because you're working from home doesn't give you the ability to come and be in your pajamas while you're talking to the rest of your office staff. So I think that is where the employee manual sets your rules and regulations and policies, and that's what you have to make certain that people are adhering to. And I'm telling you, social media is the thing I would watch very closely, because people think, oh, I'm not I'm not in the office, so I can type in anything I want on my media, on my social media pages, and yet it still can reflect your particular decorum at the office. And it can also impact when people look at the company page and see, oh my gosh, these are their employees. It can have a very negative effect.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's part of your overall brand too, right? So we talked about having a brand, you know, and identity, values, and portraying who you are as a business, and you know what your employees do within the sphere of the business, then becomes part of your brand as well, right? It's
you really should be speaking with one voice, which is why if you have a good set of goals and you say, this is where we're going, that here's where we are and this is where we're going, you need to be able to explain that very clearly to your employees, and at the same time allow them to be involved in the conversation. Therefore, you're including their points of view. You're allowing for the conversation where you listen to the different perspectives. And in that way, you can come up with a more combined perspective that allows for everybody to feel like their input matters and that they're a part of the solution, and then you can move forward. We really are in a situation right now. We're trying to move to be more inclusive. We're trying to move to be more diverse. And in doing that, you have to realize that as the leader, you need to be listening. You need to be listening more so that you can include their points of view, and you'll have a more balanced solution. You'll have a solution that's more likely to succeed if, and you be able to meet your purpose if you are using strategies that people bring in from their different experiences.
Yeah. We talk a lot. You talk there about mission, right? Mission and goals. And I think we talk about that as a business. It becomes very important here with the politics, right? What is the mission and identity of the overall business or nonprofit or, you know, your household even, right? What are your mission and vision? What are you trying to accomplish? What's the goal? And you get that down. And then you can have the discussion of what political stance do we take? What political conversations do or we do not have in light of the mission and values and goals we have, right? So, you know, good mission, value, goals will tell you whether the political item relates to what you're doing as a business or not.
This is a very tumultuous time, and people are going to be, right now, there's a lot of anxiety, and you have to realize that. And as the leader, and because there's a lot of anxiety, you're going to need to be flexible in how you're dealing with people, you know, almost anticipate parents with children going back to school, parents with elderly, their own elderly parents that they're now taking care of, they're caretakers. So there are a lot of moving parts right now. And as the leader, it's important that you listen again to the different situations and then figure out, okay, how are we gonna, we still have to make these products, we still have to deliver these services. How are we gonna do that? And at the same time, be more blending with the particular challenges that people are facing.
Yes.
So how are they gonna be able to do their job and still take care of their family and personal lives?
Yeah, it does from a leadership standpoint cause a lot of issues to come in here. Tanya points out maybe it's time to go back and update your employee manual. I think so, right? I mean, this has been
absolutely.
We talked about that before. I mean, 2020 is just one of the years where you're probably gonna have to redo a lot of things. You and I talked in another show about redoing your business plan.
It's not a bad thing.
Now you can redo your employee manuals. This is just a year where I know a lot of people like to once and done those things or say, hey, I did it. I don't have to worry about it for a year or two. That's just not the cards we were dealt, right? We were dealt a big change up. And, you know, as a leader, it's time to go back and revisit a lot of things and say, where are we, where are we headed, rather than just saying that's where we were headed a year ago. So let's keep headed there.
Well, and disruption can be healthy, you know, because if you look at it that way and you say, okay, this is a time to go back and do an after action review and say what's working, what's not working. Do we have to pivot? Maybe, and by pivoting, if you're listening to your employees, maybe you come up with a whole different revenue stream. But it is a time to just review everything that you've got, all your documents, because things have changed and they're not going back.
They're not going back, right? I mean, the state of the market is what it is, right? I mean, things have changed.
That's a lot.
Some of it's temporary, right? I mean, some of these restrictions on how many people you can sit in a restaurant,
right?
Some of that's going to change back. Yes, we're going to snap back in some areas, but some of it's going to be different, right? I mean, people are moving to different parts of the country. They're buying different real estate. They're going to change their consumption patterns. Some people are going to get the habit to, stay at home more and do more locally. And so it's just a shift. And we as leaders, whether we're leading a business, leading a household, leading a nonprofit, we got to step back and say, market shifted. What opportunities are there? What is our new identity? What is our new mission, values? Where are we headed? And then execute on that. We can't just say, oh, we wish it would go back like it used to be.
But this is a time too, if I may interrupt, this is a time, not only are you looking at how your employees are behaving and their anxieties and their challenges, that now we want to adapt, and we want to make certain that we are accommodating where we can, but also look at your, like you said, Shawn, look at your customer base, your clients. Their behavior has changed. And how is that changed? And how do you need to now accommodate and serve them in a different way? Because they are learning over these months. They have developed new habits that probably are going to stay in place. Like you're saying, are they going to stay home more? Are they going to shop locally? Are they shopping online, so that maybe you need to hop online and make certain you have a more robust online shopping space? So I think that it's very important that you look at the two areas. You've got, these are all stakeholders for you. So are you looking at your employees and making certain that they're being able to handle the change? And how are you also looking at the customer base?
Yeah, and let's talk about hard decisions here, right? So, we talked about branding, value, missions. You're talking about looking at your customer base, aligning with your customers, aligning with your employees. And the truth is, not everybody's going to align, right? We're going to do a lot of this alignment study, and we're going to find out we've got a customer that doesn't fit our new mission and values, or we got an employee who's not going to agree with what we decide. Maybe 8 or 10 people say yes, and one of them says no. And you got a strong majority consensus, or you got a strong reason for going a certain direction. You're going to have these situations. What do we do about that, Dr.
Well, I think that's where the job descriptions, and as you're lining and saying this is how we are moving forward, and maybe you're changing your job descriptions and the actual org chart, that you make certain that people, as you are setting your goals, that people can align to those. And if they can't, then it is a hard decision. I think though that, again, it's the critical conversations that you need to be having ongoing. It should not be something that comes out of the blue. It is something where we are talking about this, and this is the shift we're taking, and this is the values that we have moving forward. And if people cannot align with that, I think they'll make the decision on their own. And that's perfectly legit. And it's just the way that we agree to disagree, and that they're going to probably sort themselves out. I don't think, if they're advocating for a particular political view and you say we're not going there, then they just have to realize they're not going to change the entire culture. They're not going to change the company. And therefore, it's, again, back to you being transparent and clear and saying these are our values and this is what we're going to stand for.
Well, you avoid a lot of these issues by taking stands early on, right? So one of the big things you can do as the leader is to decide what direction you're going, right? Because a lot of organizations fall into that unintentional trap of somebody comes in and there's kind of a vacuum. There hasn't been discussions about it. The leadership hasn't taken a position. So this person just starts moving everybody a direction.
Right.
They become a leader by proxy because they just jump in and say, okay, I'm taking everybody a direction. And,
and you know what happens is that you end up with dissension.
Yes.
You that's the problem. And then everybody's unhappy. And that is where you're spiraling in the wrong direction. And that's why it is essential that you have your values, because whenever I do business planning and whenever we work on that, remember, Shawn, we always start with values are the center, and the culture comes around those values. And from that, you can then design your strategies. Because of course, if your culture is not aligned, then what the saying is, culture will eat strategy for lunch. They will not buy into it. They will not continue with you. They will not make things happen for you if they don't buy in. And it starts with having that value foundation.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's important we be intentional and we do the hard conversations, because if we don't, we're going to get pushed by, activist employees or outside forces or whatever. We're going to end up in a place where we don't want. And that's why we always talk about having goals and setting yourself towards those goals and then making adjustments and tweaks to get to those goals, these goals that align with your values. And here it is again in the political realm, which is we've got to know what our organization stands for, what fights we want to fight, what fights we don't want to fight, and we need to be intentional about it. Otherwise, we're going to get pushed off course by a breeze that we weren't expecting.
Right. And I do think that, if you are intentional with your values, then you're going to find that it's easier to make the decisions, because you can always point back to the values. You can always point back to the purpose and say, this is why we're doing, understanding why are we doing what we're doing. And it can't simply be, we're doing this to make money.
Yeah.
Doing this because we want to have a positive impact in this arena, whatever that arena is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Again, so a lot of tough stuff. This is hard for a leader because it adds work. But this is our job, is to direct our organizations, right? So whatever role we're in, we need to take this step of directing things, or else we're going to end up losing a lot of control. So I think that
you have to be a model too. As a leader, you can't come in and say, "Hey, this is my political point of view." All of a sudden, you have to be the modeling what you're expecting, what behavior you're expecting from your.
I love that. I love that point, because as a leader, we have to, kind of leave our. And we talked about this in Entrepreneur CEO, is, having a separate identity and brand for your business. And early in the life of the business, the identity and the brand of the business and the owner intermingle.
Right.
But if you want to become a true CEO of an enterprise that can run itself, that business has its own identity. And in some places, particularly in political spheres, the identity of the business that perhaps you started and took over and built, may have a different identity than you. And what serves the entity may be different than what serves you. And allowing that division to happen and allowing the divergence between your personal views and your business's views and what's best for you and what's best for your business is a huge step in getting to being the CEO and allowing your organization to have its own identity.
Yeah. And I do think there are some industries right now, the restaurant industry is a good example, that here in Pennsylvania, they are coming together and trying to advocate and say to the governor, please let us open, so to more than 25%, so that we can stay in business, because in that way you are really trying to, protect your employees, help your employees, in that. But it's a political stand, but it's really not a divisive stand. You're just advocating, trying to help in a way. So I think we've got that. I think the travel industry is still mired in terrible situation. So sometimes you can be supportive of your staff and go to the mat for that.
Yes. Yep. I agree. So, I mean, it's all about setting the hard conversations. Folks, I know a lot of you have jumped in and participated with us today. We really appreciate that. Come back again. We do these regularly, usually on Wednesdays at 10 a.m., although we had a very good live audience today on Friday, so we may test a Friday format too. The important thing for you guys is go to the Journey to CEO YouTube channel, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. You'll pick up our recorded shows. You'll see some announcements of our live shows on Facebook and other places. But we want you to come hang out with us. We definitely want to be part of the conversation with you as you're on this journey to CEO. And we're here to help. That's our goal, right? And we're building teams. So if you really want some personalized help in the journey to CEO, reach out to me or Dr. Ann. We can get you into a group or some type of something that'll help you move along. We have a lot of different options, but we're glad you're here. Yeah, go ahead.
Thing, Shawn, just as a reminder, we do have guests pretty regularly. So if there's a particular business aspect or function that you would like to learn more about, we'll be glad to find some experts in those areas.
Yeah, let us know what you need and we'll tune it in. So, we're glad you're here. We really appreciate your support. Looking forward to reading your comments, whether you watch live or on recording. We'll be reading through those. And we'll be back for another edition of Journey CEO. Just make sure you're subscribed to Journey CEO YouTube channel. Reach out to me and Dr. Ann, and we look forward to talking to you all again soon. Thanks for being here, folks. Dr. Ann, thanks for a great conversation.